Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
Intense. Like, so shocking you'll never want to sleep again. I asked, chuckling at her enthusiasm. Yes, something that'll make me feel like sleeping is a terrible idea, she said, tilting her head as if she hadn't quite figured out the details. That's kind of a challenge, don't you think? I said, laughing. Anything works. Something scary, weird, whatever. She clasped her hands and pleaded as if begging. You're the only one I can ask, Ryan. My name is Ryan, and I'm 32 years old. I'm a typical white-collar worker at a pretty big company in Seattle. My colleagues and bosses are mostly great people, so I enjoy my days at work. They've started trusting me with more responsibilities, and thanks to my optimistic personality, I've always lived life with a positive outlook. But I couldn't stay carefree forever. One day, a woman made a strange request, and it sent me losing my cool and acting recklessly. On top of that, I learned something astonishing. That incident completely transformed my life. If you're okay with it, would you like to hear my story? The company I work for is located in a stylish office building. As soon as you step into the lobby, you see the reception desk right away. There's always a woman sitting there, and I greet her every morning. But she doesn't respond right away because she's always dozing off. She sits with her head slightly tilted down, eyes closed, quietly sleeping. That day, as I entered the office, I saw her asleep as usual and chuckled to myself at how elegantly she slept in her poised posture. Elise, good morning. I walked up to the reception desk and greeted her slightly louder. Elise didn't budge, still fast asleep. How deep is she sleeping? I muttered to myself with a smirk and gently tapped her shoulder. Suddenly, she jerked her eyes open, her body trembling slightly as she let out a startled, "Oh." Her reaction was so adorable that I couldn't help but smile. "Yup, you were sleeping," I teased in a playful tone. Elise shook her head, looking a little flustered. "No way. I meant to stay awake." She's 27, 5 years younger than me, and has this laid-back vibe with a quirky, friendly way of talking that adds to her charm. Talking to her is always fun. With a shy smile, she added, "Seriously, I went to bed early last night." I nodded, chuckling. "Really? You went to bed at, what, 9 p.m.? That's super early. So why are you sleeping now?" Elise has been with the company for about a year, but she's almost always dozing off. She seems genuinely concerned about it, but back then, she didn't treat it as a big deal. "No more sleeping today," I teased, giving her a playfully stern glance with a smile. "I'll try my best," she replied, her eyes bright with resolve. After that light-hearted exchange, I went to my desk. I worked through the morning, and when lunchtime rolled around, I thought, maybe I'll grab a sandwich at the deli nearby. As I passed through the lobby to the elevator, I saw Elise sleeping again. "Oh, you're at it again," I said to myself, smiling as I approached her. "Elise, it's lunchtime," I said, tapping her shoulder. She opened her eyes, quickly stood up, and blurted, "I'm sorry," before suddenly dropping her head. "What's wrong?" Still groggy, I asked, laughing. Elise looked up at me, her expression softening into a relieved smile. "Did you have a dream about getting scolded or something?" I asked jokingly. "I wish it was just a dream," she replied in a slightly dejected tone. "Did you get in trouble for real?" "Yeah, I messed up big time," she said, her shoulders slumping as a gloomy expression crossed her face. Seeing Elise, who's usually so cheerful, look so down was unusual, so I softened my tone and asked, "What happened?" This morning, around 10:30, the manager passed through the lobby. I was so sure I'd stay awake at that time, but I was so sleepy today that I dozed off without realizing it. And of course, the manager caught me, she said with a sigh. "Dozing at work." "Really?" "Yeah, they really laid into me. They said if they catch me sleeping again, I'm fired." I was a little surprised. "Whoa, well, dozing at work isn't exactly great," I said. "I know. It's ridiculous to sleep during work hours," Elise said, nodding as if scolding herself. I swore I wouldn't sleep, but just now, I dozed off again. You were sleeping so neatly, though, I teased, but her face stayed serious. This isn't funny anymore. I really can't sleep again. I don't want to lose this job. You're right about that. But didn't you say you went to bed early? I asked gently. Yeah, but I don't know why I keep getting sleepy. I sit here all day with not much to do, so it's hard to stay focused, and I get tired. But that's just an excuse. I have to figure this out somehow, she said, looking at me with earnest eyes. Her sincerity hit me, but I couldn't think of any good advice. If she was staying up late, I'd tell her to sleep earlier, but she's already trying that. What else can I suggest? I thought, lost in my head. A brief silence fell between us. We stood there, both deep in thought, for a few seconds. Then, out of nowhere, Elise's eyes lit up, and she exclaimed, I've got an idea. What's that? I asked, looking at her curiously. Ryan, help me, she said, clasping her hands and pleading with a desperate expression. Help? With what? I'll do my best not to sleep, but there might be times when I doze off. When that happens, wake me up in a really intense way. Intense? Like, so shocking you'll never want to sleep again? I asked, chuckling at her enthusiasm. Yes, something that'll make me feel like sleeping is a terrible idea, she said, tilting her head as if she hadn't quite figured out the details. That's kind of a challenge, don't you think? I said, laughing. Anything works. Something scary, weird, whatever. She clasped her hands and pleaded as if begging. You're the only one I can ask, Ryan. Her desperate look caught me off guard. You're making it sound so serious. You've got tons of friends here, I said, half joking, since Elise's outgoing personality and pretty looks made her popular among our coworkers. No way. It has to be you, she said firmly, and my heart fluttered for a moment. Why is that? I asked, smiling. She paused, then grinned mischievously. Because you seem like you'd come up with the most outrageous way to wake me up. Oh, that's why? All right, I'll think of something, I said, nodding with a laugh. For a second, her only you comment made my heart race, but I shrugged it off, figuring it didn't mean anything deep. Elise was just a cute coworker, no romantic vibes, just friendly. But coming up with a way to make her never want to sleep again was no easy task. I mulled it over while eating my sandwich at lunch, but no ideas came to mind. Luckily, I didn't catch Elise sleeping again that day, and the workday ended without incident. The next day, when I got to the office, Elise was rarely awake. Whoa, you're up, I said, surprised, flashing a smile. I'm trying really hard, but my eyes keep getting blurry, she said, struggling to keep her eyes open in an adorable effort. I'll wake you up if you doze off, so don't stress too much, I said, chuckling, and went to my desk. That day, Elise really put in the effort. When I passed through the lobby around lunchtime, she was still awake, tightening her fists and declaring, I'm staying awake. Her determination was so cute that I couldn't help but smile. By the time the workday ended, I wondered, is Elise still awake? Curious, I went down to the lobby. When I reached the reception desk, there she was, eyes closed. Oh, she's asleep. She tried so hard today, though. I approached her, about to wake her with words, but then I remembered her request. Wake her up in a way that'd make her never want to sleep again. That meant something intense, maybe something she'd hate. What could that be? I decided to give it a shot. First, I grabbed her cheeks with both hands and gently stretched them. She stayed asleep, her cheeks stretching hilariously. It was so funny that I snickered to myself. I played with her cheeks for a bit, but eased up, worried I might hurt her. She was still fast asleep, not stirring at all. She's not budging, I said, laughing, and softly stroked her cheeks, just to soothe them after all the stretching. As I looked at her up close, I got lost in thought. Her eyelashes are so long. Her skin's flawless. She must be popular. She's so cheerful and cute. So why does she hang out with me so much? It was the first time I'd seen her this close, and I started to feel pulled toward her charm. Elise, wake up, I said softly, half hoping she'd stay asleep so I could keep looking at her. But she didn't stir. The longer I looked, the more her beauty pulled me in. Her soft lips, slightly upturned nose, and smooth skin grew more captivating by the second. Would a kiss wake her up? She's so deep in sleep, she wouldn't hear anything I say. My heart pounded, and in a moment of weakness, I blurted out something ridiculous. Ugh, what am I even saying? I stepped back, clutching my head. How do I wake her up? I sighed, looking at her face again, and then I let out a small gasp. Her face was bright red. Wait, are you awake? I asked, leaning closer. But her eyes stayed closed, and she didn't move. Is she awake or not? I cautiously touched her cheek. It was warm, more alluring than usual. Did you hear what I said earlier? I asked, my voice shaky, but she didn't respond, her red face the only clue. I can't tell. I stroked her hair, leaning closer. Then I heard voices in the distance, coworkers finishing overtime and heading out. Panicked, I looked around. I need to hide. Looking back, there was no reason to hide, but I felt embarrassed, like I was doing something wrong. There was nowhere to go, so I ducked behind the reception desk. The sound of my coworkers' laughter grew closer, making my heart race. I felt like I was committing a crime. Holding my breath, I stayed still until the voices faded. Letting out a big sigh, I stood up. No one was around, and Elise still looked asleep, eyes closed. Without thinking, I took her hand. Her slightly cool fingertips stirred a warm sensation in me. This feels happy. My heart raced as I held her hand tightly. Good thing she's asleep. If she were awake, she'd probably hate me for this. Just as I was about to let go, she suddenly gripped my hand tightly. Huh. I looked at her hand, then her face. Her eyes were still closed, but her eyelids trembled slightly, confirming she was awake. She's awake, but faking sleep? Why? Curious, I lightly tapped her cheek. She still didn't open her eyes. If you don't wake up now, you might be in big trouble, I said playfully, resting my hand on her cheek. Her face grew redder, and her grip on my hand tightened, as if saying she didn't care about the consequences. I chuckled softly. Pulled toward her, I kissed her. Her soft lips made my heart pound. Her grip loosened, and soon our fingers intertwined like lovers. Her warmth, her breath, her soft skin captivated me entirely. She was just a coworker, but once I crossed that line, I couldn't stop myself. I held her close, stroking her hair. Though her eyes were closed, her lips curved into a joyful smile, making her even more irresistible. Still not waking up? I asked, knowing we were nearing a dangerous point. She was clearly awake, but stubbornly faking sleep. It was adorable and amusing. How far do I have to go to get you up? I teased, kissing her neck. Her breath trembled slightly, and I held her tighter. Her soft curves and warm body fueled my desire. As things escalated, I froze in shock. She wasn't wearing any underwear. What the? I blurted out, utterly confused. Why aren't you wearing underwear? No answer. Of course, she kept her eyes closed, a happy smile on her lips. In a daze, I lost all sense of reason. What if I do this? Will you wake up? I said, unable to look away from her. I touched her smooth skin, feeling her body tremble slightly. My feelings for her grew stronger, and I held her as if I wanted to consume her entirely. Her breath, her warmth, her everything captivated me entirely. At that moment, she finally opened her eyes at the height of her emotions. Hi, she said, looking at me with teary eyes. You're finally awake, I said, laughing awkwardly. I was awake the whole time, she said, blushing with a joyful smile. I figured, I replied, chuckling. I was hoping you'd do this, she said, hugging me tightly. Up until that moment, I'd only seen her as a coworker, but she was no longer just that. All I could see was her, and we gave in to passionate love. Her soft skin and warm body drove me wild every time, and I found myself wanting to hold her more and more. My feelings for her grew stronger each day. The blissful moments passed quickly, and we found ourselves holding each other under the reception desk. Can I ask you something? I said, stroking her hair. Sure, she replied softly. Why weren't you wearing underwear? I asked, laughing. Haha. On purpose, she said, blushing with a shy smile. I was hoping this would happen. What? You still don't get it. Get what? That I like you, Ryan. Her sudden confession left me speechless. You're warm, bright, and kind, but a bit oblivious, she said, giving me a cute pout. Sorry, I said. Most people wouldn't notice, but I kept talking to you specifically. Oh, I see. I said only you could wake me up. You said it's because I'd come up with something crazy. I was too shy to say I liked you outright. Her adorable demeanor made my heart lift. So, the sleeping, was that on purpose too? No, that was real, she said. What's that supposed to mean? I can't fake being sleepy. I was really struggling, but then I thought, if I stopped sleeping, what would I do? I realized if I thought about you doing something, I couldn't sleep. So I hatched a scheme to ask you to wake me up in a dramatic way. She laughed as she explained. So you didn't wear underwear because you were expecting this? Yep, a surprise, she said. That's quite a plan. It's memorable, right? A surprise like this sticks with you. I didn't want it to be a one-time thing. I wanted your attention, and I'd do anything for it. She held my hand, speaking cutely, and I couldn't help but smile. She must have been so excited when she came up with this scheme, I thought. The coworker I once found cute was now an irreplaceable woman in my life. She hugged me, exclaiming, "Mission accomplished." Her inability to keep her secret and her honesty were so her, and I found that innocence utterly charming. We rested for a bit and agreed to head home together. While she changed, I waited, and we left the office together. There was a warm, electric chemistry between us, both exciting and comforting. As we walked and chatted, she suddenly stopped. "What's up?" I asked. She held out her hand, smiling shyly. "I can't move forward unless you hold my hand." "Guess I have no choice," I said, laughing, and took her hand. When our hands touched, she glowed with joy, and I could see a future where I'd fall even deeper for her. From that day, we grew much closer. The next day at work, she was awake again. "Wow, you're up," I said. "When I'm here, I keep thinking about yesterday, so I can't sleep even if I try," she said, laughing awkwardly. Effective wake-up method, huh? "Next time, will you hug me even if I'm not sleeping?" She cooed playfully, and I nodded. "Anytime," we said, laughing. After that, we left work together every day, held hands, and spent weekends eating out and sharing passionate moments. Her soft skin and warm body drove me crazy each time, and my desire to hold her grew. My feelings for her deepened daily. 2 months after that wake-up incident, I was head over heels. "Elise, will you be my girlfriend? I love you," I confessed, unable to hide my feelings any longer. She hugged me tightly with a dazzling smile. "I'm so happy. Oblivious Ryan finally noticed me," she teased, laughing. "Sorry," I said. "It's okay. I love that about you too." We laughed and became a couple. Even as we dated, her cuteness won me over countless times. I fell deeper in love with her every day, as if there were no limits to love's depth. She remained bright, cute, and innocent, but one thing changed. I no longer saw her dozing off at work. She used to always be sleepy, so I wondered why she stopped. About 6 months into our relationship, I asked her. Her face turned red, and she said, "It's a bit embarrassing to say." "What is it?" She hesitated, avoiding my eyes, but finally spoke. "I keep imagining things." "Like what?" "Fantasies about you holding me, places I want to go, our married life, and some things I can't say out loud. Even now, thinking about that day makes my face flush." Her shy demeanor was so lovable. Knowing our future was part of her fantasies made me happiest. "It's already been 6 months," I said, smiling. "No matter how many months pass, that's a special memory," she said earnestly. "Do you remember when we first met?" "Huh? Oh, I forgot," I admitted. "I was sleeping then too, and you woke me up. You asked, 'Are you okay? Are you feeling sick?' and gave me an energy drink. You smiled and said, 'Don't push yourself too hard. Good girls go to bed early.' You seemed so charming and warm, and I fell for you ever since." It finally came true. I've been going to bed early ever since, like a good girl. Seeing her smile shyly as she spoke, I hugged her tightly. I didn't clearly remember our first meeting, But I recalled how waking her up became a habit, how her proper sleeping posture was amusing, and how her cheerfulness made her a cute coworker. That day's incident ignited my feelings for her, and dating her led to this joy. I hope this joy lasts forever. I started thinking concretely about the future. I planned how to propose and came up with a good idea. After secretly preparing, I carried out my plan on the 8th month of our relationship. That day, we spent the morning visiting Seattle landmarks, had a delicious seafood dinner, and planned to spend the night at my apartment. At 9 p.m., I said, "Good girls don't sleep tonight," holding her as we lay in bed. She falls asleep fast and doesn't wake easily. She's a sound sleeper. "What did you say?" she mumbled. But a minute later, she was out. I quietly got up, took a ring from the drawer, and slipped it onto her finger. "It's because you were sleeping that we ended up together. Surprises while you're asleep are the best," I murmured, stroking her hair. I held her, imagining a happy future, and fell asleep. The next morning, her voice woke me. "Ryan, Ryan." "Morning," I said. "Look." She was jumping on the bed, tears in her eyes, staring at the ring on her left hand. Her joyful reaction was so her, and I laughed. "Surprise," I said. She hugged me tightly, asking, "You'll marry me, right?" "I'd love for you to marry me." "This isn't a dream, is it?" I stretched her cheeks like I did that day. "I did this back then too," I said. She laughed through her tears. "I was awake then too. I thought you were so cute." We looked at each other, laughing, and spent a happy morning together. That's how we moved toward marriage. It's been 9 years since we got married. We still love each other like we did back then. The only difference is that we're parents now. Our daughter takes after Elise and sleeps soundly. Watching Elise and our daughter sleep soundly is a moment of true joy. Elise still loves me, hugging me when I get home from work. To sustain this joy for decades, I'll keep loving her too. Thank you for listening to the end. If you have any great memories, I'd love to hear them.